Hello, my dearest students. In today's video, we're going to discuss the story The Necklace, written by Guy de Maupassant. So, that is the correct pronunciation of the author's name. This is a story that teaches an important lesson that greed and vanity is dangerous and that one should be content with what they have. Now, let's discuss the story in detail. She was one of those pretty young ladies, born as if though an error of destiny into a family of clerks. She had no dowry, no hopes, no means of becoming known, loved, and married by a man either rich or distinguished. So here, the author says that there was one pretty young lady and she was born through an error of destiny. Means instead of being born in a rich or an elite family, she was born into a family of clerks. So, since they had no money, she had no dowry, she had no hopes of being married into a rich man. So, therefore, she allowed herself to marry a petty clerk in the office of the Board of Education. She was simple, but she was unhappy. So here a question could come. Why was the young lady unhappy? The young lady was unhappy because she had rich taste and big dreams and wanted to lead a lavish life. But unfortunately, she was born in a family of clerks where they had no money for dowry, no means of becoming famous, or she had no possibility of marrying a rich and distinguished man, and that is why she was unhappy. She suffered incessantly. So, incessantly means continuously without any pause, feeling herself born for all delicacies and luxuries. So, she says that she felt that she is born for luxuries and for delicacies, and she is not meant for the simple life. She suffered from the poverty of her apartment, the shabby walls, and the worn chairs. All these things tortured and angered her. So she believed that she was not meant for such a simple life where there were shabby walls and poverty all around. So the surrounding made her angry and she felt tortured. When she seated herself for dinner opposite her husband, who uncovered the terrine. So, terrine is a deep covered dish, usually in which soup is served. So, when he uncovered the terrine with a delighted air, saying, "Oh, the good pot pie, I know nothing better than." So, here we get an idea of the character of the husband. So, husband is a very content man. Content means satisfied. He's satisfied with what he has and he finds happiness in it. He's a very simple man. She would think of elegant dinners, of shining silver. She thought of the exquisite food served in marvelous dishes. She had neither frocks nor jewels, nothing, and she loved only those things. So she loved expensive things that she could never attain. She had a rich friend, a schoolmate at the convent, who she did not like to visit. She suffered so much when she returned. She went for whole days from despair and disappointment because she dreamt of a life that her friend was already living. So she suffered from despair and disappointment. So she was envious of her friend. Envious means jealous of the life her friend has. And she was resentful. One evening, her husband returned elated. Elated is happy, bearing in his hand a large envelope. "Here," he said, "here is something for you." He was very excited that he has got something for his wife. She quickly drew out a printed card on which were inscribed these words: "The Minister of Public Instruction and Madame George Ramponneau ask the honor of Mr. and Madame Loisel's company. Monday evening, January 18th, at the Minister's residence." So they have got an invitation to the minister's residence. Instead of being delighted, as her husband had hoped, she threw the invitation spitefully upon the table, murmuring, "What do you suppose I want with that?" So the husband expected the wife to be excited and happy, but instead she threw the invitation spitefully. Spitefully means hatefully or cruelly. So here a question could come: how did the husband expect the wife to respond when he got the invitation, and how did the wife really respond or react? "But my dearie, I thought it would make you happy. You never go out, and this is an occasion, and a fine one. Everybody wishes one, and it is very select. Not many are given to employees. You will see the whole official world there." So he's saying it's an exquisite invitation. Not everyone is bestowed with the invitation. So it's a great occasion to be delighted. She looked at him with an irritated eye and declared impatiently, "What do you suppose I have to wear to such a thing as that?" She's like, "Okay, if you say it is an exquisite invitation, what do you think I'm supposed to wear? I don't have anything." He had not thought of that. He's a very simple man, so he didn't think of all of that. He stammered, "Why, the dress you wear when we go to the theater, it seems very pretty to me." He was silent, stupefied in dismay. So, stupefied means shocked. So, he was silent, stupefied in dismay, that is, saddened and disappointed at the sight of his wife weeping. He stammered, "What is the matter? What is the matter?" So, he really did not expect such a reaction from his wife as she will cry. By a violent effort, she had controlled her vexation. So, vexation is feeling of being annoyed, and responded in a calm voice, wiping her moist cheeks. "Nothing. Only I have no dress, and consequently I cannot go to this affair. Give your card to some colleague whose wife is better fitted out than I." She's like, "Since I don't have any appropriate clothes, just give the invitation to one of your friends. So the wife who's better fitted than me to attend such a party." He was grieved, but answered, "Let me see, Matilda. How much would a suitable costume cost? Something that would serve for other occasions, something very simple." So he's asking, okay, how much would such a dress cost, but something simple that you can wear on other occasions as well. She reflected for some seconds, thinking of a sum that she could ask for without bringing with it an immediate refusal. So she was thinking, what price can I quote so that my husband is not going to outright reject my proposal? And a frightened exclamation from the economical clerk. So he was not a spendthrift. Spendthrift is a person who spends an enormous amount of money lavishly, but he wasn't that. He was a very economical clerk. So she wanted to give him an amount that he wouldn't outright reject, and also that wouldn't frighten him and make him shocked. Finally, she said in a hesitating voice, "I cannot tell exactly, but it seems to me that 400 francs ought to cover it." Exactly, I cannot tell you, but I think 400 grands will do the job. He turned a little pale, for he had saved just this sum to buy a gun that he might be able to join some hunting parties the next summer. So, for what had the husband saved that exact amount of money? To buy a gun that he might join his hunting friends the next summer, who went to shoot lark. Lark is a type of bird on weekend, Sunday. Nevertheless, he answered, "Very well, I will give you 400 francs, but try to have a pretty dress." So here you can see the husband is a very selfless man. He's ready to sacrifice his wants and desires for his wife. The day of the ball approached, and Madame Loisel seemed sad. Oh, so now there was another problem. So what problem? New problem arised. First, she did not have an outfit to wear, so she bought it. Now, on the day of the ball, she was again sad, disturbed, and anxious. Nevertheless, her dress was nearly ready. Her husband said to her one evening, "What is the matter with you? You have acted strangely for 2 or 3 days. So, what is concerning you? Because you have been acting pretty strange since the last few days." And she responded, "I am vexed." Vexed means causing worry. She's saying, "I'm worried not to have a jewel, nothing to adorn myself with. I shall have such a poverty stricken look, and I would prefer not to go to this party." So she's saying, "I wouldn't want to go to this party because though I have a wonderful dress, I will look like an impoverished person." So, impoverished means poor, or I will look like a destitute. Therefore, I will not want to go for the party. So if you see here, Madame Louiselle is a materialistic person. Her wants and desires, her happiness depends upon exquisite things. He replied, "You can buy some natural flowers. In this season, they look very chic." So he says, instead of buying something expensive, why not substitute it with some natural flowers? She was not convinced. "No," she replied. "There is nothing more humiliating than to have a shabby air in the midst of rich women." So she's like, "I will be humiliated if I look like a very shabby, poor person in between these rich, elite women." Then her husband cried out, "How stupid we are! Go and find your friend Madame Forestier and ask her to lend you her jewels." So he comes up with a solution. So, what was the solution to the new problem that her husband suggested? Her husband suggested that she could borrow the jewelry of Madame Forestier for that party. She uttered a cry of joy. "It is true," she said. "I have not thought of that." So she's like, "Oh, yes, that is a wonderful idea." The next day, she took herself to her friend's house and related her story of distress. So, distress is her problem. Madame Forestier went to her closet, took out a large jewel case, brought it, opened it, and said, "Choose, my dear." So, even Madame Forestier is a very big hearted person. She took out her jewelry box and said, "Choose whichever you want to wear." She saw at first some bracelets, then a collar of pearls, then a Venetian cross of gold and jewels of admirable workmanship. She tried the jewels before the glass, hesitated, but could neither decide to take them nor leave them. Then she asked, "Have you nothing more?" So she was given a lot of choice, but still she was feeling very indecisive. She could not make a choice. So she asked, "Do you have anything more?" "Why, yes, look for yourself. I do not know what will please you." So she said, "You can take whichever you want. I don't know what will make you happy." Suddenly she discovered in a black satin box a superb necklace of diamonds. Her hands trembled as she took it out. So she saw this beautiful necklace of diamonds and she was excited. She placed it about her throat against her dress and was ecstatic because she always liked luxurious things. Then she asked in a hesitating voice, full of anxiety, "Could you lend me this? Only this?" So she was really anxious because it was such an expensive jewelry, she thought. "So, will you be able to lend me this piece of jewelry?" And Madame Forestier said, "Why, yes, certainly you can take it." She fell upon the neck of her friend, embraced her with passion. So she gave her a big hug with lot of passion because she was overwhelmed with joy because she got to wear a prized possession. Then went away with her treasure. The day of the ball arrived, and Madame Louiselle was a great success. She was the prettiest of all. So she looked elegant, she looked gracious, she was smiling and full of joy. All the men noticed her. So she enjoyed being under the spotlight, and that is exactly what happened there. She looked elegant in her new dress and her jewelry. She danced with enthusiasm, intoxicated with pleasure, thinking of nothing but all this admiration, this victory so complete and sweet to her heart. So every time what she craved for or what she seeked throughout her life, it had come true. So they partied all night and she went home towards 4 o'clock in the morning. Her husband had been half asleep in one of the little salons since midnight with three other gentlemen whose wives were enjoying themselves very much. So the husbands were half asleep since midnight and the wives were enjoying very much. He threw around her shoulders the modest wraps they had carried, whose poverty clashed with the elegance of the ball costume. So the husband had enclosed her with a wrap around her dress because it was cold, but the poverty of the wrap clashed with the elegance of the ball costume. She wished to hurry away in order not to be noticed by the other women who were wrapping themselves in rich fur. So here she was feeling inferiority complex because the others were wrapping themselves in rich furs and hers was a shabby looking wrap. Louisel detained her. Wait, he said, I'm going to call a cab. So you wait here, I will go call a cab or a taxi. But she would not listen and descended the steps rapidly because she didn't want anyone to see her. When they were in the street, they found no carriage and they began to seek for one, hailing the coachman whom they saw at a distance. So there wasn't any carriage nearby. So they started hailing the coachman who was far away. They walked along towards the river, hopeless and shivering. They kept walking hopelessly and shivering in the cold because they could not find a coachman. Finally, they found one of those old carriages that one sees in Paris after nightfall. And it took them as far as their doors, and they went wearily up to their apartment. So they were tired or worn out. It was all over for her. And on his part, he remembered that he would have to be at the office by 10 o'clock. So he had to go to office by 10 o'clock tomorrow. And for her, it was all over because there was no more party for her to wear these beautiful jewelry and these gowns and be under the spotlight. She removed the wraps from her shoulders before the glass for a final view of herself in her glory. It's like before I change my clothes and get back to reality of being poverty stricken. She wanted to have a final look of herself in that glorious costume and jewelry. Suddenly she uttered a cry. Her necklace was not around her neck. So what did she discover? She discovered that the necklace was missing. Louisel, already half undressed, asked, "What is the matter?" because he heard a cry. She turned towards him excitedly. I no longer have Madame Forestier's necklace. So she's like, it is missing. It isn't there. He arose in dismay. So he was in disbelief. What? How is that? It is not possible. And they looked in the folds of the dress, in the folds of the cloak, in the pockets, everywhere. So they were searching every nook and corner for the jewelry. They could not find it. He asked, "You are sure you had it when we left the minister's house? Are you sure you had it?" "Yes, I felt it as we came out." "But if you had lost it in the street, we should have heard it fall. It must be in the cab. While we were walking, if it fell down, you would have heard the sound of it falling down." "But maybe it'll be in the cab." "Yes, it is possible. Did you take the number?" So she's asking, "Did you note down the number of the cab?" "No. And you? Did you notice what it was?" So both did not pay attention to the number of the cab, so they could not track which cab they had come to check in that, as they were all worn out and intoxicated. They looked at each other, utterly cast down. So they were really sad. Finally, Louisel dressed himself again. "I'm going to," he said, "over the track where we went on foot to see if we can find it." So now he's like, "I'm going to find that." Just the way we came, I'm going to backtrack all those places to find if it has fallen anywhere. And he went. She remained in her evening gown, not having the force to go to bed because she was in disbelief and heartbroken because the necklace was missing. Towards 7 o'clock in the morning, her husband returned and he had found nothing. So, what did the husband do to find the jewelry? He went in search of all the places that they had walked to find if it was fallen there. He went to the police station and also to the cab office to find it. And he also put an advertisement in the newspaper offering a reward. So, this could be a question. What all did the husband do to find the jewelry? She waited all day in a state of bewilderment. So, bewilderment means she was puzzled and confused. Before this frightful disaster, so it was a very disastrous situation. Louisel returned in the evening, his face pale. He had discovered nothing. So there was no trace of the jewelry. He said, write to your friend that you have broken the clasp of the necklace and that you will have it repaired. That will give us time. So he told his wife to give a reason to the friend that the necklace clasp has been broken and they're giving it for repair. So it will buy them more time to search for the jewelry. She wrote as he dictated. At the end of a week, they had lost all hope, and Loisel, older by 5 years, declared, we must replace this jewel. So they tried their level best to find the jewelry, but all hopes were lost, and he was so tired that he felt older by 5 years. In a shop of the Palais Royal, they found a chaplet of diamonds. Chaplet is a necklace, a string, a garland of diamonds, which seemed to them exactly like the one they had lost. So they found an identical necklace. It was valued at 40,000 francs. They could get it for 36,000. Louisel possessed 18,000 francs, which his father had left him. So he had around 18,000 francs that his father had left for him after his death. He borrowed the rest. He made ruinous promises. He took money from usurers. So, usurers are the people who usually lend money but at a very high interest rate. And the whole race of lenders. So, he borrowed a lot of money. He made promises to the people and borrowed all that money. Then he went to get the new necklace, depositing on the merchant's counter 36,000 francs. When Madame Loisel took back the jewels to Madame Forestier, the latter said to her in a frigid tone, you should have returned them to me sooner, for I might have needed them. So, what took you so long to return this jewelry? You should have returned it sooner because I would have had occasions to wear them. So, she was oblivious to what had happened to her jewelry. Madame Forestier did not open the jewel box as Madame Loisel feared she would. What would she think if she should pursue the substitution? What should she say? Would she take her for a robber? So all these thoughts went into Madame Loisel's mind. So what would she think when she comes to know that we have replaced the jewelry of hers? Would she think I'm a robber? Madame Loisel now knew the horrible life of necessity. She did her part, however, completely heroically. It was necessary to pay this frightful debt. Now they were in a great debt because they had loaned a lot of money. She would repay it. They sent away the maid. So they had maid. They had to make a lot of changes to their lives and live life like a miser. And they had to live in poverty where they had to sacrifice all the luxuries that they had. They changed their lodging, so they went to a smaller house. They rented some rooms in an attic. That is how they lived. She learnt the odious work of a kitchen. So, odious is unpleasant or repulsive work of a kitchen, because this was not the life that she had envisioned for herself. She washed the dishes. She washed the soiled linen. Soiled linen means that were dirty. Their clothes and dishcloths, which she hung on the line to dry. So she did all the work which she had never done in her life because they had to send away the maid. She took down the refuse to the street. So the waste, the garbage, she had to take it down to the street each morning and brought up the water. So even water for consumption or for usage was carried by her, stopping at each landing to catch her breath. So this was a tedious job for her. Or you can say laborious work. Laborious means labor intensive work. And clothed like a woman of the people. She went to the grocers, the butchers, the fruiterers with her basket on one arm, shopping, haggling to the last sou of her miserable money. She even went to buy all the necessities on her own, and she would bargain, that is, haggle, to the very last price because of her lack of money. So, this is how her life had changed after she had lost the jewelry. So, this could be a question. The husband worked evenings. So, now not only did her life become difficult, even the husband's life. He had to work extra in the evenings, putting the books of some merchants in order. And nights he often did copying at a 5 sous a page. So maybe he did copying work during the nights. And this life lasted for 10 years. So they had to go through 10 years of misery to replace the debt. At the end of 10 years, they had restored all. So it took them a decade to restore all the money. Madame Louiselle seemed old now because she had done a lot of hard work. She had become a strong, hard woman, the crude woman of the poor household. So before she used to think about all these rich, fancy things, but now she had become the crude woman of the poor household. Her hair badly dressed, so her hair were not neatly combed. Her skirt avary means it was not in order, it was twisted and displaced. Her hands red by working so much. She spoke in a loud tone, so not like a very elegant lady, and washed the floors with large pails of water. But sometimes, when her husband was at the office, she would seat herself before the window and think of that evening, partly of former times. So sometimes she would sit near the window and think about the older times of the dance ball where she was so beautiful and so flattered because everyone praised her for her beauty. How would it have been if she had not lost the necklace? So she would think, how would life be different if I had not lost the necklace? Who knows how singular is life and how full of changes? How small a thing will ruin or save one. So she, just a small thing as a necklace has completely ruined my life. One Sunday, as she was taking a walk in the Champs Elysees, to rid herself of the cares of the week, she suddenly perceived a woman walking with a child. It was Madame Forestier, still young, still pretty, still attractive. So because of her difficult life, she had grew older, but Madame Forestier still looked young and pretty. Madame Loisel was affected. Should she speak to her? Yes, certainly. And now that she had paid, she would tell her all. Why not? She said, first a thought went to her mind, should I say? But she's like, now all the debt is paid, so might as well tell her. She approached her. Good morning, Jean. Her friend did not recognize her and was astonished to be so familiarly addressed by this common personage. Now, Madame Louiselle also looked very old and shabby. She stammered, but madam, I do not know. You must be mistaken. No, I'm Matilda Louiselle. Her friend uttered a cry of astonishment. So she was shocked. Oh, my poor Matilda, how have you changed? What has happened to you? Yes, I have had some hard days since I saw you, and some miserable ones, all because of you. So she is actually accusing her friend for her bad days. Because of me? How is that? You recall the diamond necklace that you loaned me to wear to the minister's ball? Yes, very well. Well, I lost it. How was that since you returned it to me? I returned another to you exactly like that. And it has taken us 10 years to pay for it. You can understand that it was not easy for us who have nothing because we are poor and my husband is a clerk. But it is finished and I'm decently content. So now I am happy because it is the loan is paid. Madam Forestier stopped short. She said, "You say that you bought a diamond necklace to replace mine?" "Yes." "You did not pursue it then? They were just alike. So, oh, you didn't realize that it has been replaced?" And she smiled with proud and simple joy. Madame Forestier was touched and took both her hands and she replied, "Oh, my poor Matilda, mine were false. It was imitation jewelry. They weren't original diamonds. They were not worth over 500 francs." Oh, I think after this, Madame Louiselle would have got a heart attack because her entire life, 10 years were ruined because she worked towards getting the money and those were false jewelry. So, this definitely gives us a lesson that we should be content with what we have and not to dream for things beyond how much we can afford. I hope you enjoyed listening to the line by line explanation. If you haven't subscribed, do it immediately. Until I meet you with another video, take care of yourselves. God bless you. And I am praying for each one of you. Thank you.